Welcome back. You're listening to Ask the CIO, sponsored by Sprinkler on Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guest today is LaShonda Hodge, the Managing Director of Customer Experience for the Centers of Excellence at the General Services Administration. Now, LaShonda, before break, we were talking about social media a little bit, and I told you I had a story to tell. So put up with me. I'll make it quick, I promise. I was in a panel recently with a bunch of customer experience experts from different agencies, and they talked about how they're using the Twitter, the Reddit, the feeds from Facebook and other things. And they were taking those comments and putting them up on screens in the elevator. And so as people got in the elevator, obviously pre-pandemic, they would see these tweets or whatever that was, maybe not the best spelled correctly, maybe had some curse words, maybe had some grammar mistakes. And some of the folks were complaining about that initially until they kind of got their head around it. Wait a minute, they're talking about us. They're talking about how our agency is working. And it was an eye-opening experience for many people to say, that's how we are perceived. Have you seen that from other agencies? What are you seeing about how agencies are using social media to build and create relationships and process that feedback?
Well, I think that's an amazing idea to take what people are saying about an agency and put it in the faces of all the people who help create this experience for people, even whether directly or indirectly, because again, it gets them closer to how people actually feel and hearing it directly, kind of like I talked about, where I was saying that the agency leaders, while they know it's important to understand people, they haven't actually heard it directly from them. So that's a great way to hear information about you directly from a person who experiences your agency. And so I will have to take that as a part of my part of the framework that we use and how to institutionalize CX in the future. So that's a great little addition to our framework. One of the things that I've seen happen as well is kind of along with pulling out just the data, the pure data, is also looking at sentiment around particular topics around your agency, and just to see how people are perceiving kind of the things that you are trying to do. So if you have a particular program and that has kind of keywords that you can use, you can kind of search to see what people are kind of saying about that program, but also how people feel, which I think is really, really an important piece of information, because you can use that to say, okay, if it's extremely negative or majority negative, you need to do something, right? You need to dig deeper. You need to figure out where you need to do additional research around that particular topic, because you're failing somewhere. And so I like that you have this kind of instant access to information to figure out where to kind of put your money. There's not infinite resources, right? So you have to pick something to start with and pick something to do. So if you can see like that, how people are feeling about a particular thing, and you can use that to determine where to do your next work, it's a really smart way to determine where to put your resources. So I've seen that. I think the other things that I have seen is people use social media just like they would a contact center, right? So if they would call you, email you, or chat you on your website, or get the information from the website to call you, they will do the same thing for social media. They will go to your Twitter page and type about something that they've had a terrible experience about, and people need to actually be able to respond to that just like they would a contact center. If they emailed you, if they chatted you, they called you, people need to have their questions answered on social media. So also taking some time to like incorporate that into kind of the customer service operations, and helping agencies kind of move to see contact center more broadly than just like those calls and emails that they get, and expand towards social channels. One of the other things that I've seen is kind of automated responses to people asking questions. Again, thinking about how a call center works. If you've got a knowledge base, you can quickly pull up what that answer should be if they have particular keywords, and kind of automate those responses so people feel like they've been heard and their questions have been addressed. And so I think that social media is really a great place to change the tide of an experience. So if someone's asking a question or having a bad experience, you can set up structures and automation to be able to hopefully make that experience better for that person. So
Is there concern from your perspective as an expert in customer experience that social media can be a bit of an echo chamber? It's 30 people all yelling at each other, and you really don't get the broader sense. So I imagine you would say it's combined with, if you're seeing a sentiment and that sentiment is negative on Twitter, on Facebook, that's not your only data point. We're going to get to the data discussion in a second. You have to then bring in other data points and see really what you're hearing. But that's maybe a good place to kick off.
yeah, I would have to agree. You cannot just use one piece of data. You need to use a combination of data. And it's so important to understanding customer needs in the moment, as well as assessing need trends over time, right? So like I was just saying, someone's asking a very specific question on social media where you can, understand that question and answer that question, and then you've created a positive experience. But also we need to take that information, as many people are talking about things, like I said, getting that sentiment and assessing kind of need trends over time or over a large period of time. So it can help agencies determine what customer needs are and aren't being met, to better determine where to invest their improvement efforts, and to measure the success of improvements, new products and services. So it's definitely necessary to capture a lot of data, because we need to understand the journey that customers take to accomplish their goal, where there is friction in their journey as they're trying to complete a task, where they expect something that we aren't providing, what that friction costs the organization, how satisfied customers are with that experience, how long do things take, and how long do they feel like they take. Is it a reasonable amount of time? Like certain things should take a long time, but something takes longer than what we expect. How does that friction affect uptake? How many people does it affect, or kind of that magnitude? And then what people are using today. So all that data really starts to paint a picture of the needs and friction points, and how changes impact that experience. And generally, people are good at capturing what's happening, right? So I know that 50 people have, applied for this specific thing in government. I don't know sometimes that 150 people weren't able to make it through the system. And then for those 150 people that weren't able to make the system, we don't always know why, right? And which we can start to glean from that social listening, because people are going to be complaining in their echo chamber on the internet. We will start to hear it through survey, open text field data. But that still kind of it lacks depth that's needed to truly understand the root of the problems, and not just the symptoms that show up when where people want the resolve and just aren't able to articulate the myriad of factors that created that friction. So we basically need to do some deep dive kind of research. So qualitative observational data, one-on-one conversations to be able to probe more deeply into what's happening, really is kind of what kind of brings it all together to help us solve for those root cause issues. So that's that qualitative data, which is the context behind human behavior, or the why, and then that quantitative data. So that's the what's happening. So together, it makes up that really complete picture. But I could talk about how we work with agencies to kind of take all that data and create a picture, because there are a lot of issues right now with agencies and how they think about data and how they use data to kind of make decisions.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, that's what I'm going to ask you to do. Talk about how agencies are using data. I'm Jason Miller, and you're listening to Ask the CIO, sponsored by Sprinklr on Federal News Network.